So getting leads is great, of course, unless they never turn into paying clients. Now, I've run Facebook ads for many years, and the struggle was very real for me for a lot of years before I finally figured it out. And I've talked about it a lot on the podcast. But eventually, when I began to get my ads converting and get a really good cost per lead, I still dealt with low quality leads. And truthfully, a lot of it was actually my fault, right? And the reason I was thinking or calling them low quality is because they would come onto my list, but they weren't buying like months, many months, years after they came onto my list through the ad. But like I said, this was actually my fault. And I think a lot of us, when people aren't buying, right, they're coming onto our list and they're not buying, it's very easy for us to think, oh my God, these aren't quality leads. These are low quality leads. And truthfully, yes, there is such thing as low quality leads, which we're going to discuss in just a second. But a lot of times it's your fault. Calling you out. It is your fault that those leads are never getting to the point where they feel ready or safe or secure in buying your product or your program. Okay. So, what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about how you're attracting leads matters and it does affect their quality and how to differentiate between low quality leads and high quality leads. We're going to talk about why warming up cold leads, also warm leads, but especially cold leads, is essential and why it's harder than ever, but what you can do to overcome that. And we're going to talk a little bit about what I do for new leads coming onto my email list in order to warm them up. And it's a strategy that has been working very well. Okay. So, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between organic leads and ad leads, right? And when I talk about ad leads, I am referring to meta ads, Facebook and Instagram ads, because that is my area of expertise. That is where I do all my paid advertising, and that is what I teach my HCA students. Okay. Now, organic leads are the people who are coming to from like your Instagram account or your YouTube channel or something like that, right? So they come to you having already been consuming your content, right? And typically those people are going to convert at a higher level. And the reason is because it's this very organic experience, right? They see your content or somebody refers them to you, or they come to you kind of on their own volition. They find you, they like your content, they like your vibe, and then they opt into your email list. So by the time they're on your email list, potentially, I mean, we never really know, but they actually could have been kind of following us and checking us out for quite some time, right? So they are totally there because it just was this very organic experience, right? Versus Facebook ads, right? Facebook ads, they had an ad put in their face that they didn't ask for. And then, for whatever reason, it intrigued them and they, came onto your email list. But when we're talking about ads, we're talking about people who kind of come to you with a lot of skepticism, right? Because there's a lot of ads online. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things online, right? We live in an online world where there is a lot of skepticism and there's a lot of distrust. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are right now, right? So when they come to your email list, they're still like checking you out and they're not sure. And that's where it's really important for you to prove to them that you are someone worth following and you are someone who can help them. Versus the organic leads, a lot of times by the time they get onto your email list, they're kind of already sold. Not necessarily ready to buy, but they're already like, yeah, I like this person. But the cold leads who come to your email list, they're really just at the beginning of their journey. So I really want you to keep that in mind, okay? Now, when it comes to running ads, people want cheap ads, right? Of course, we always want to pay as little money as possible. And what I teach my students is we really do want to focus on that cost per lead, which is the cost for each subscriber who is joining your email list. Yes, we want to focus on that. But sometimes lower costs can lead to lower quality. Now, I'm going to give you an extreme example first. So, Advantage Plus. It's like the bane of my existence right now. But basically, what Advantage Plus is, in meta ads is basically when Facebook or Meta will basically expand your parameters to reach a bigger audience. So let's say in your ads, you've told Facebook, I want to target women in their 30s who are interested in fitness, just as an example. If Advantage Plus is turned on, then Facebook will take that and it'll expand that. So it'll expand it beyond maybe your country parameters. Maybe you've said women in their 30s interested in fitness in the US. So it'll go outside of the US. It might go outside of women in their 30s, right? It'll kind of take note of what you've put, but it will sort of expand outwards. And it will do that when it will give you a lower cost per lead. And a lot of us think, okay, well, that's great. I want the cheaper cost per lead, but this one can be sort of work against you in some cases. Okay. Now, Facebook really wants you to use Advantage Plus so much that even when you turn it off, it'll like turn it back on. And this is like a big issue these days with running ads. And it kind of drives me crazy because, I'll go through, I'll set up my ad, I'll see the Advantage Plus checkbox, I'll select it off, I'll go do something else, I'll come back and it's like turned back on. So Facebook likes to be really sneaky with it because they really want you to use it because it typically will get you a cheaper cost per lead. And sometimes this works to your advantage. So an Advantage Plus audience can work, but the way that I like to tell people to do it is to test it. Okay. So have a specific ad set or audience that you are like, this is my Advantage Plus. I just want to see what happens versus doing that with all your audiences. Because a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times what happens is Facebook will sort of expand your audience and it'll go to countries like India or the Middle East where people will just sort of spam your ads. And all of a sudden you'll be getting like 20-cent leads and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But when you see the emails on your email list, they don't look like real emails or they have Arabic names. Like people who, I'm sure some of them are probably real, right? Some of them are definitely spam, but some of them might be real people, but they're probably never going to buy your program, right? Because maybe with the exchange rate, maybe you have a $2,000 US program and in, India, that's like a year's salary for someone, right? We don't want to target people who are ultimately never going to be able to buy, even if it gives us a cheaper cost per lead, okay? So this is the problem with Advantage Plus. I see it all the time. I always like to test one, but it doesn't always work. So I'll give you another example of when I tested this. So I run ads to an evergreen webinar for my hair tissue mineral analysis course, right? So people opt in for the free video. It's about an hour long. I pitch the program at the end. It converts very well. Okay. So I decided to test an Advantage Plus audience. So I allowed it to expand. And what I noticed was that the emails coming onto my email list were all hairstylists. It was like, Jim at greathairsalon.com. Like a terrible business name, but you know what I'm saying. And I was like, yeah, that's not it, right? That's not my ideal people. This isn't like a hair treatment. We don't help hairstylists. So I turned it off. And I was getting really cheap leads. I think I was getting like $2 leads, which in the business to business space is like unheard of, but they were not my people. So in that case, it actually didn't matter that my leads were cheap. These were people that were never going to buy my program and honestly probably misinterpreted what the ad was actually about. They probably thought it was a hair treatment. And then once they saw my emails, they'd be like, oh, this is like not for me. Right. So that's an example. This is like an extreme example. So when you are setting up ads, you want to make sure that Advantage Plus is toggled off, unless of course you want to test it. And if you are testing Advantage Plus, please do keep an eye on your email marketing software. Look at the emails coming in because you will be able to tell if they are quality or not, right? Because when they are quality, they look like real emails. It's like Sarah24@gmail.com or like Janet_Smith at yahoo.ca or whatever versus like some totally spam looking email with a domain that you've never seen before. So if you are using Advantage Plus, please do keep an eye out because you'll be able to tell very quickly if you are getting those cheap looking leads or spam looking emails. And if you have Advantage Plus turned on, then I would just turn it off and then you'll probably see those leads disappear. Okay. So that's really important. And honestly, every time you start an ads campaign, you need to do this because it can always happen, right? There might just be an audience again where, you thought you toggled off Advantage Plus, but Facebook toggled it back on. And now your ads are getting sent to, the Middle East or Eastern Europe or in India. And you're just getting all these spam emails from like dudes and you help women or something like that, right? So it's always important to do your due diligence when you start ads. Okay. Now, the next way in the short term that you can tell if your leads are quality is by monitoring your open rates. Now, a really important email to monitor is your confirmation email. So this is the email that people get sent automatically after they opt in for your freebie. So let's say you are a health coach who helps women with acne in their 40s, okay? And so you have a free guide that gives them some tips on, how to improve their acne in their 40s. And so they are going to opt in, and then that's going to trigger an automation, and they're going to get an email in their inbox that delivers the guide. This should be the most engaged email of all time. Okay. And it's because they have just put their hand up. They've said, yes, I want that thing. Give me that thing. And the next logical step would be to check their email and get the thing. So if you are seeing low click through rates and low open rates on this email, that is a sign that perhaps the leads aren't quality. Now, the first thing you always want to double check is your subject line, right? Because open rates and click through rates are highly tied to subject line. A big mistake I see a lot of people make is they have a really long subject line, or in the subject line, it is not clear that it's the guide. And so just think about this. Let's say, I'm the woman in their 40s with their acne, and I'm doom scrolling on Instagram. I see your ad, I want the guide, I click to it, and then my baby cries, right? And then I go to my baby, and I've forgotten temporarily about the guide. But then I'm in my inbox the next day, and I see a subject line that's like, your free acne over 40 guide is here. I'm like, oh yeah, that guide. And I'll click into it. But if you say something like, it's here, Janet, or it's here, Kendra, or something that doesn't explicitly indicate that it's the guide, then I might be like, what is this? I don't know what this is, right? So you want to make it really clear. So I might say something like, your free acne guide is here. Free acne guide inside, or something like that. And it's just so people can recognize it. And that's going to really help your open rate. Okay. Now, an open rate is just the percentage of people who open your email. And what I will say is they are a little bit inflated depending on how many people in your audience use Apple Mail. Okay. Because of privacy settings, people who use Apple Mail, Apple will not send data back to your CRM or your email marketing software to tell the software who opened the email. So everything gets flagged as open. So if your person uses Apple Mail, they're going to be flagged as open, that they opened your email, whether they opened it or not. So again, it really depends on how many people in your audience use Apple Mail. But I would say your email rates are probably about 20 to 30% lower than what is reported. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But click-through rates, which is the percentage of people who click on an email, are actually a little bit more reliable. So with that email, that confirmation email, we want really high open rates. I would say at least 50%. So you want at least half of people who put up their hand and say, yes, I want that thing, to open that email. And then your click-through rate, I would say you want it to be at least 30%. So 30% of people clicking on that link and getting the download. Okay. So if it's lower than that, if your open rate is lower than that, work on your subject line, that really fast, easy to see, short subject line that makes it really clear what it is. And that's probably going to help everything. Now, the next thing you want to do is monitor the open rates and click-through rates on your email nurture sequence. Okay. You do not have an email nurture sequence. You 100% need one. And I'm going to recommend episode 255. So you can go to kendraperry.net/episode 255. I actually give you the template for a really effective email nurture sequence. Okay. So the email nurture sequence is a series of emails, usually 10 to 14 emails that goes out every single day after somebody signs up for your thing, and it provides value. It gets them to know you. It essentially will help warm up your cold leads. Okay. So looking at open rates and click-through rates on these is really, really important. And I would say you probably want open rates. I try to get them 40% and above throughout the entire email nurture sequence, and click-through rates, depending on if you have links or not in your emails, I like to see those above 2%. Okay. So if you are seeing, that you have a really poor open rate on your confirmation email and your email nurture sequence, and you've made sure that your subject lines are good, maybe you've tinkered around with subject lines and people are just not opening them, then I would actually be testing new audiences, maybe testing new creative, maybe testing new copy in your ads, because we want people that are actually engaging in our emails. And this is really important. So sometimes it's not necessarily that the leads are low quality. It's just that you haven't done a very good job of warming them up. And I'm going to talk about a really, really awesome strategy that I use in my email nurture sequence. I'm going to tell you about it at the end. And for us, it's really helped increase the quality of our leads. Okay. Okay. So I've now made the distinction between cold leads and warm leads, right? The organic versus cold. Okay. And even if you're getting a lot of your leads through social media, through warm, it's still your job to get them ready to buy. Okay. And remember what I said at the beginning, we are dealing with an online market. This is the hardest market I've ever seen for selling in my 12-year career. Okay. And it's because there's multiple things going on. There's like some pretty crazy political things going on that might make people feel unsafe buying, right? People might not feel safe in their jobs right now. They might not feel safe with like what the stock market's doing right now. People just maybe in general don't feel safe with the current political situation going on because there's a lot of change and uncertainty, right? We're dealing with a cost of living crisis where everything is more expensive. The cost of living and homes and houses, everything is more expensive. And then we're dealing with skepticism, right? We're dealing with people online. This is not their first rodeo. They have worked with other coaches, they've joined other programs, and a lot of people have been burned, right? So people are skeptical, right? They are burned. They have their walls up, okay? So it's harder than ever to warm people up and get them ready to buy, but we can still do it, okay? So a lot of people like to tell you that people have really low attention spans or short attention spans. And I don't actually believe this to be true because I binged 6 episodes of Love is Blind the other night, right? I did listen to a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast the other day. I don't think it's that people's attention spans are thin. I just think it's that they're only going to spend their time on things that are interesting to them. And then, of course, there's lots of distractions and that higher skepticism, right? So we really need to work to build trust and show value. We can't expect leads to just warm themselves up, right? It's our job to guide them from who the fuck is this to I fucking need this. Okay. So we've talked about the email nurture sequence. Really, really important. You need 10 to 14 emails that go out each and every day that deliver value to your audience and really show to them that, okay, this person is worth sticking around from. I'm not going to unsubscribe because I'm getting a lot from these emails, either in the form of value, tips, or entertainment. Okay, so we've already talked about the email nurture sequence and the importance of that, right? That's going to help build relationships. It helps you share value. It's going to help you create aha moments, right? But something that I want to mention, and this is really important, is there are different purchasing behaviors. Now, a lot of the information we get online is that you need to nurture, 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 warm people up, that people aren't going to be ready to buy right away. And honestly, that is true. And I'm going to throw a random percentage out here that I'm literally pulling out of my ass, but I would say like 75% of people like do need a bit of time. But there is a percentage of people who are ready to buy right now. These are the people who make quick buying decisions. This is me. I am this sort of buyer profile where for me, I don't like to spend much time for the most part. I basically, if I have a problem and you put a solution in front of me and the solution looks good, I will buy it. It's because I like to take action and move forward. I'm very much the extreme of that. So yes, we need to nurture, but we also need to accommodate people who are ready to buy sooner. And I would say, at the end of your email nurture sequence, like pitch your sales call or send people to an evergreen webinar or pitch a low ticket offer. For example, in my email nurture sequence, we pitch a low price business audit for people who are going through that because some people are just ready. Okay. Some people are just ready. And so we don't want to forget about those people. Okay. So the email nurture sequence is very important. This is something that we help our students set up inside Health Coach Accelerator. The next thing, and I'm going to be speaking a little bit more about this on a future podcast, but is long form content. Long form content is not dead. And just by saying this, I just kind of gave away what I'm going to talk about on my next podcast episode. But I think because there's so much of our attention is being put towards like short form content. So things like reels that are like 30 to 60 seconds, like TikToks, small, short pieces of content. That's what a lot of coaches and practitioners are spending their time on and then wondering why their audience isn't ready to buy. Long form content is not dead. I mentioned this before. I listened to a 3-hour Joe Rogan episode the other day, right? I love listening to hour-long podcasts, right? And a lot of us love watching YouTube videos or reading blog posts. And long-form content is really important because the short-form content will help bring attention to you, but it's the long-form content that really builds the relationship, right? You sitting here doing what you're doing, maybe you're doing the dishes, you're out walking, you're driving. I have your attention for a very long time. I don't know how long this episode is going to be, but it's probably going to be 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more. That's a lot of time in today's day and age. I have you for 20 minutes. And as you listen to me, you're getting a sense of my voice, my personality, what I sound like. You're getting way more value than I can ever provide you in, a quick reel. And so long form content is really important. And I think we need to infuse long form content into all the marketing that we do. Okay. Social media is also really important. Now, I love to poo poo social media. I really don't think it should be the primary way that we try to generate leads and clients. I look at it more as a relationship builder, right? If you come to my Instagram, you'll see my stories. You'll see what I'm up to throughout the day. You'll see cute little stories with my cute little baby. You'll see my adventures, what I'm eating, my Aura Ring stats, right? So it's relatable. I also share client results. I share behind the scenes content of me working in my business, right? I share some education as well. So this is really important for building the relationship. And hopefully you see how all this kind of works together, right? Our paid marketing and our organic marketing all kind of work together. Okay. The other thing is running live events. Now, I know a lot of people love to say that live launching is dead. That is bullshit. Live launching and live events are very alive and very well. And this is truly an amazing way to create more depth and connection with your audience. Okay. Now, I teased earlier that I was going to tell you about the new strategy that I am doing in my email nurture sequence that we are seeing get really good results in that it is helping people engage more with the emails, and we are getting more buyers from our cold leads now, which is really great. Okay. So my email nurture sequence, you may have received it, right? If you signed up for one of my free offers. And this actually might be how you found my podcast, right? It was through my email nurture sequence. So basically, I have my email nurture sequence, and in every email, I always make sure to recommend related podcast episodes or related YouTube videos. I always make sure to say, hey, if we talked about niching, for example, I'm like, here's my top, my most listened to episodes on niching. Those always get a lot of clicks. But what we've done as of recently is we've actually created a complimentary private podcast feed that goes along with the email nurture sequence. Okay. So at the top of every email, we say, hey, would you prefer to, listen to this in audio form? Like, here's the link to our private podcast. And so essentially in the private podcast, I'm basically just discussing the same content that's in the email, but then I'm elaborating, right? So then I'm going into more depth. I'm telling more stories. And we get great downloads for that. And we are getting a lot of great feedback. And what I've noticed is since we started doing that, we are getting a lot more sales from people who actually came to us through an ad, which I think is pretty exciting. Okay. And the nice thing about this is they don't need to wait every day to get the email. They can just binge the private podcast feed, and it really helps people warm up to me. And again, get a sense of my personality, who I am, and helps them make a quicker decision whether I'm someone who they want to keep following or not. Okay. So I use a service called Hello Audio. I will link to that in the show notes for this episode. And there are many out there. And if you really wanted to keep it simple, you could literally just send people a Google Drive link, right? But we use Hello Audio, and it's just kind of set up as a little podcast feed, and we're going to continually add to it over time. But it is truly a really great way to warm people up to us. Okay. So video and audio content, whether it's a YouTube channel or a podcast, or even just if you really want to keep it simple, maybe you're like, okay, starting a YouTube channel and a podcast seems really overwhelming. Just do Instagram lives or Facebook lives. Just go live on your feed and then promote it and send people to it and keep a bank of it. And when you were going live on Instagram, just record yourself just the way I am right now on a Zoom meeting, and you can pop that onto YouTube, or you can pop it into Vimeo and send people to a Vimeo link, right? We really need to focus on this long form content in order to warm people up. Okay. So the bottom line is that low quality leads aren't always low quality. Most of the time, it's just that you haven't done a sufficient job to warm them up and make them feel safe and confident investing in your offer. Okay. But low quality leads do exist. You're probably not going to be getting low quality leads through your organic social media unless you don't have a specific niche and a specific freebie. But if we were running ads, it's really just about making sure that the emails look quality and that people are actually opening and clicking on our emails. All right, my friend. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wealthy Coach podcast. I will see you next Monday, same time, same place, where I help you become wealthy AF.